this is Alchemist 2, and I'm back again with another movie review. Just recently, I had a chance to see The Green Book, and honestly, I had to do a little bit of research because, yeah, I'm familiar with Jim Crow South, but I really was not well informed or well educated on how awful it was for blacks to actually find safe havens at this time. This era in history. It's definitely a mar on our character as Americans, and yeah, I guess you can say that the remnant of racism remains in a way, but and this is going to get me a lot of hate, I know it, but at one point in time in the film, Sydney plays the victim card, but actually it's understandable coming from where he's been, where he's going, and it just irritates me when some black people say, oh, well, we're so oppressed because we had to deal with slavery. Slavery was abolished, so get over it. I mean, I hate to say it. It's the same thing with the Holocaust. I mean, God forgive me. I know the Holocaust was a horrible thing, but you survived, and yes, you will have PTSD because of it, but you shouldn't play the victim, and it's one thing that really irritates me as a person, and I'm not a bad human being myself. I understand why people would do that, and Sydney has his motives for doing so, but allow me to backtrack. Sydney is a virtuoso pianist, and he needs a driver. He actually goes by the name of Doctor because he has all these really lofty, prestigious degrees that give him a lot of notoriety. But despite that, it's still an extremely racist time. And what my friend noticed, he was actually dissecting the film bit by bit, and it's an absolutely fabulous movie, and there is a lot of topic to cover, and I know I probably got myself into a lot of trouble just by stating my opinion on certain subject matter, but I am not a racist. I'm far from it. I have friends from Nigeria, I have friends from Russia, Italy, Cyprus, Greece, Israel, Palestine, the UAE, lot of Turkish friends, a lot of friends from Egypt, Serbia. Let's see, where else do I have friends from? China, Hong Kong, Japan, Indonesia. Well, I have a friend who was originally Indonesian, but he lives in California, so he still counts as Indonesian. Let's see, Ireland, Wales, Britain, South America. Most of my friends are actually Latino, which is really not uncommon just due to the fact that I go to a Hispanic church, but that's neither here nor there. What I'm getting at here is the main crux of the film. It centers on Sydney and Tony the Lip, and these are actual people. And Tony takes upon this job that he absolutely needs. He has had a very, very hard life, and he lives in the Bronx, and he makes a less than reputable living. And it kind of makes you have the sense that he deals with people who are involved with the underground, which gives you pause. And I'm thinking that that's actually pretty common in this day and age, even though a lot of people say, oh, there's no mafia. Beg to differ. Mafia's still alive and well, my friend. But Sydney, he has to use the Green Book in order to travel because the Green Book has locations that only black people can stay in. And I thought, oh my gosh. I honestly cannot imagine, but it's just such an interesting comparison and contrast between the two characters. They are definitely foils for one another. You have a man who is profane in his language and really doesn't have that big of a vocabulary. However, he has moxie and he has street smarts. And then you have Sydney, who is very eloquent, extremely well read, brilliant, however, doesn't have a lot of common sense when it comes to money, because there's a scene where he's got a wad of $100 bills. And I'm thinking, you don't do that. You don't show that in broad daylight because you can get shot or mugged or worse. And my dad always told me that. He said, and I'll remember this, never keep more than 100 in your pocket in 20s. I thought, well, maybe it should be less than that. 40 is probably your best going bet. I mean, if you get mugged, just give them the money and run. Don't fight, because it's not worth losing your life over petty cash. But that's just a lesson that living living in any town, no matter where it is, will teach you. But Green Book is one of those stories that is very interesting. It's a fascinating movie. And one thing that my friend pointed out was there was a moment within the film where Tony actually meets Sydney for the first time. And there's an Asian man that actually walks past him, and he kind of gives him a downward glance. He looks at him kind of askance, and I thought, And I really don't know how bad the race relationships were at that point in time. I know that later on it took the late 60s and early 70s. You had Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and all those revolutionary thinkers, the dreamers, the trailblazers, as we call them. And honestly, I really admire Dr. King and Malcolm quite a bit. I'm a big fan, honestly. I'm all about freedom for everybody. And I like to think that all lives matter. I don't think it just is relegated to one particular race. I'm just going to say that right now, and hopefully I don't get flamed. But the movie itself is, like I said, it's a great catalyst for beginning conversations, especially about race relation and just history in general, because it is a very fascinating film focusing on a topic that wouldn't normally have scrutiny applied to it. But there are many shades within this film itself, and it's not just black and white, pardon the pun, but nonetheless, it is just absolutely stellar, and the cast is phenomenal. I adore Viggo Mortensen. I think he plays Tony. He plays Italians unbelievably spectacularly. He was definitely a force to be reckoned with, and I wouldn't want to make him PO'd. No way. Yeah, you don't do that. And especially later on when you see that shift in his personality and Sydney begins to rub off on him. That's what a good friendship will do. It transforms you as a person. And I think that's the true meaning to take away from the movie. It's by far one of the best documentaries I've seen. It's 5 stars and 2 thumbs way up. No vetching, no complaint. There's nothing about this film that would warrant it as bad by any means. It is a real delight to watch. Of course, there are some movie moments within it that would, if you're like me and you care about people in general, it will rankle you a little bit. It'll raise your hackles. And yes, it shows history as it happened, and it doesn't sugarcoat that, which I appreciate, but I think that's kind of a stain on our reputation in America. The race relations of the past. I think, honestly, that this has changed. Well, I'd like to think it is. Yes, it still exists in its form, just due to the fact that we are very judgmental beings, but I like to look at it this way. I think that we are all human, we all share one planet, and for humanity's sake, we should at least try to get along or have a semblance of some kind of consensus in how we do our business. But some people just, they don't understand that no man is an island, even though everybody is separated. But there was one thing, I actually wrote down a quote that just, it really hit me because I thought it was so profound. Actually, two quotes, but this quote was actually stated by Tony. The world is full of lonely people afraid to make that first move. And I thought, that's heavy, because in this day and age, I mean, if you think about it back then, yeah, this just because of prejudice. But if you look at it now, look at our technology and look at how much it's divided us. And we need to figure out a way to talk to each other again, because we've lost that art. We've lost the whole understanding of etiquette itself, how to communicate clearly and precisely, elocution, because we're too lazy. And actually, I've worked on that, because honestly, I had a little bit of a speech impediment when I was little. I did not pronounce my G's correctly. So Dad, God love him, he had the patience and the know-how, and plus we had such an understanding of each other that he was able to teach me how to pronounce G at the for instance, if I were saying the word bringing, it wouldn't be bringing, it would, or yeah, I wouldn't even pronounce the G. It's very challenging to try to explain this to some, but it's just strange, because it was a very bizarre speech impediment, and as you can tell, I've overcome that. But needless to say, I think another quote that was actually very telling of the film was, "Genius is one thing, but courage to stand up for what's right is quite another." And I thought, it's also kind of reminiscent of what Alexander Hamilton said: the right if the right people don't stand for what is actually right, then what will they fall for? And I thought, ooh, well said, Alexander, well said. I know I'm paraphrasing, but I've always adored that quote, and he's definitely one of my favorite historical figures because of that. But if you haven't seen the movie, you'll see why it was given so many awards. And like I said, Vigo is positively stellar in this. The actor who plays Sydney is just out of sight, and I think that every person who lent their role to the film just did a really bang up job. And the ending is also very interesting as well. It just adds to what happened with Tony and Sydney, and it's very touching. It makes you realize that friendship is indeed one of the greatest possible occurrences that one can experience in this world, and it's the truest form of love. It's agape. I think that everybody should experience at least one friend who challenges you, one friend who pushes you to the limit, one friend who actually makes you better. And I think that's what Sydney did with Tony. But that's all I have to say about Green Book. So until next time, my friends, live long, prosper. Ciao tutti.